Hey, Ash, welcome to the show. I'm excited to jam with you.
I am so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and this thing that we're getting ready to talk about is like it is so like in my heart and in my soul, and it's been such a big part of my life for the last like 8 years. And then when we connected over it, and we both share a passion for soul sciences and human design and gene keys and astrology, it's like having a sister that I freaking like just met, and we got this topic of conversation that we can just jam over. So today I just want to unpack some stuff with you. All right.
Yeah, let's do it.
So first of all, let's set the stage. So who are you? What do you do? Like let's do the professional thing first, where we actually let everybody know who you are, and then we'll get to how you use the soul sciences and what you do. All right, we'll jam a little bit.
Okay, perfect. So I am Mae Fernandez. I am a fractional CMO and a brand messaging strategist. And I use the soul sciences, particularly astrology, human design. I dip my toe into gene keys too. But I use all of those to help people, I guess, look and sound their best. I help them tap into the energy, their, innate energy through their chart, their human design, and really kind of activate their voice and create messaging that is elevated and that speaks directly to their ideal client. And I didn't intentionally set out for this result, but I ended up having the result of having content, helping them create content that does the selling for them, which is just really, really awesome. It's being able to speak directly to who they want to work with, and calling in only the best fit clients for them that is an energetic match to what they do and who they are. I didn't set out with the result of doing that without a sales call, but that just kind of ended up happening, where my clients just created messaging so good that people were pre-sold and ready to work with them. Because when you are in that authentic self and you're expressing yourself that way, you're just so attractive. So
Yep.
that is what I do and how I use it.
Well, just like you, right? So when there's and I don't love the word calling, but when there's a purpose in us that's trying to express, God, life, universe, whatever the hell you want to call it, source energy, it doesn't matter to me. It's this guiding force that helps us get on our path. And when you were intended to share the soul sciences with the world, it was going to happen. There was going to be a convergence regardless of because it's like what you're here to do.
Yeah.
And listen, you've already helped me. And Ashley has a way of poking the bear and poking the spot, the soft spot, that she knows how to get your attention in such a provocative way that it opens your eyes and gets you quickly into speaking to the person you want to speak to instead of the person that you don't. Because what I found, and what you helped me understand, is that most people, especially in the coaching space and just in the business space, sometimes we're more so speaking to the people that we don't want to talk to. We're almost like trying to push them away instead of talking to the people that we want to talk to pull them towards us. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, it's something that I see very often, just in general of what we've been taught with traditional marketing, is the whole like pry on the pain points, like get them from like problem island to pleasure island. If I never hear that phrase again in my life, I would be so happy. But it's what we've been taught within traditional marketing. And if we take it from an astrology approach, it is the Pluto and Capricorn that we have experienced over the past 15 years. It's very much that hierarchical system where it's, like I'm the expert, you are kind of below me. I can take it like on an astrology level. I can take it on just a subconscious level in general. I like to call this the marketing mask, in that we subconsciously fall into wearing a mask of some sort. So a couple examples would be you're subconsciously approaching your content or your marketing from a place of being the teacher. And when you think that you're subconsciously the teacher, you think you're speaking to people who don't know. So you fall in this pattern of, I have to teach them. And then you get a lot of resistance because people, don't think that they really need to learn it. And so you feel like you're falling in convincing energy and trying to convince them. Another subconscious mask that I see is that you are falling in the pattern of performer. And so it's almost like you're performing. And when you think that you're performing, you are subconsciously speaking to critics or people who can like poke you and be like, oh, you're not doing that right. Right. So you're not showing up as your full kind of authentic self when you're falling into these patterns. Right. There's so many things. I could go into with the topic
Yeah.
of that. But I mean, yeah, I don't even know what direction you want me to go because there's
No,
so many.
you just pointed out every marketing approach I've ever taken, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and that's why I haven't quite gotten the traction that I was looking
Yeah.
for, because we pulled up, and I'll just go into a little detail on a call one time. Me and you, we pulled up one of my Facebook posts, and it says you're constantly pulling into your world, something yada 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 yada. And then I said, you're not a victim. And you just simply said, are your clients victims?
Yeah.
And I said, no. You said, well, why would you point that out?
Yeah.
That
And
you're not a victim.
it's this, oh my God, I love this. I love that you said that. It's this topic of almost like people didn't notice it until you said something.
Right.
Like no one didn't think about it. And then you're the one who planted that seed into their mind, and this is an NLP. I'm certified in NLP, which is neurolinguistics programming, if no one knows what that is. And it's just fascinating the way that words can affect the subconscious brain, because these words will create images and patterns in your mind that will then get translated to your subconscious brain, because your subconscious only speaks in patterns and images. And so we have been taught in the marketing world to unintentionally speak to the negative side of these patterns and these images to our clients. And then we bring in clients that aren't a perfect fit for us. And I will say this till the day that I die. There is no better way to feel inadequate or imposter syndrome than working with clients who are not a great fit.
Yeah,
like
no
when
doubt.
you're working with clients who don't value what you're doing, they don't understand what you're doing, they don't respect what you're doing. And when you're working with clients that you have had to convince to it and convince that they had the problem and that your solution is the answer to that problem, when you have to do that, you're never going to work with clients who just get it and who are absolutely incredible to work with. Then that makes you start questioning all of your expertise and all of that. And then it stinks. And I see it all the time. I work with such incredible people who are so good. I mean, you were just jiving on that of being like, we're so freaking good at what we do.
Yeah.
Why can't people see it? Right. And so it's for me, I work a lot with those people who are just so educated and knowledgeable and so different from mainstream. And it's almost infuriating to them because they're not being recognized and valued for that. And I am just like, there's nothing wrong with you. You're just talking to the wrong people.
Right.
Like, I think I wrote a post a long time ago and I said, is it an offer problem, or is it that you're just speaking to the people who don't want your offer and trying to convince them that they do?
Sure.
There's a lot of nuance in it, of course, but
and you're the one that helped me understand. And this was a light bulb moment for me, Ash. And like it was probably, mosquitoes fly on a windshield, whatever you want to call it, fly on a windshield, where I was the fly and you were the windshield. You didn't notice, but I just got like splatted, but you probably didn't know that. But you said there's problem awareness and solution awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And the worst marketing, you try to make someone aware of a problem that they don't know they have, so that you can move them from unaware to aware, and then you go to educate them about your solution and how it can solve the problem that they didn't have just a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
That's the worst marketing. So, and you simply said, well, what if we go and look for the people who are aware that they have the problem, that know there's a solution, and they're just looking for a provider of the solution? How easy would that be?
Because that's the nuance right there. That, let's say we all right now know that we have some mindset issues. And so we're saying, hey, I really am ready to hire a mindset coach. We're not going out and looking for like how to hire a mindset coach. We're going out to look for the mindset coach that we want to hire, right? Like we're not out there being like, oh, I have some mindset issues. What should I do? You know what I mean? We're not trying to find the solution. We know that the solution is hiring a mindset coach. We have the desire to do that already. Then that just becomes our job then, is trying to figure out what mindset coach jives with us, offers something that we're looking for, and energetically we match with, right? Because if we all just were interested in a mindset coach, we'd hire anybody,
Right.
anybody that was a mindset coach. And then when you flip it on the other side, if I was that mindset coach, I would say, how can I make myself look different and really showcase what it's like working with me? I don't need to convince people that they need my services, but I want to show them how my services are different. I want to show them how it is working with me and what they're going to get when they work with me. Because I'll give you a great example. Actually, this happened to me many years ago. I still think about it to this day. And I thought it was just so ironic and so hilarious. I had one-on-one client that when you work with me one-to-one, we get on a call and we catch up for the first 4 to 5 minutes. I want to know, when I work with you, we become friends. Okay. I remember a coach one time saying, like, you aren't here to be friends with your clients. I'm like, well, screw that. I'm friends with all of my clients. I love all my clients because we get very deep. We get very intimate. I need to be able to trust them and they need to be able to trust me. And like, to me, I consider someone that I get super vulnerable and intimate with a friend, right? Like they are a friend to me. And so I had this one client where we would get on the call and I would say, oh my gosh, how's your week going? She had a daughter. I was like, how's your little girl? Like, oh my gosh, and we would only spend about 5 minutes beginning of the call going over, her week and her personal things. And I would always ask her, she'd say something, and I'd ask her a personal question here and there because I really wanted to get to know her. So I had that client. And then I had, anyways, I when we were done working together, I sent a review form. And this girl, this is the only bad review I've ever had. Actually, I will say that the only bad review from a client I've ever had. And her bad review was, I hated that you wanted that we would get on a call and you would spend the first 5 minutes talking to me like a friend and that you would ask me personal questions. And instead of just it being a strictly work relationship and like she wanted me to get on a call and just be super robotic, I guess. I don't know. And what I thought was so funny is that I also had a coach at that time that I had hired, and we had been gone through maybe 4 or 5 calls at that point. And she would get on a call. She didn't remember anything that we talked about the week prior. She didn't know anything personal about me. And she would just get on, what do you want to talk about today? And she had the personality of a rice cake. And when I tell you that I absolutely hated that, and I was like, I never want to be that way. And then I had this one client who literally wrote me a bad review about that. I was like, right. Okay, this obviously is not someone I want to work with. Again, like I don't want to attract someone. She was a referral. So it wasn't like someone I attracted through my content, but she was a referral. And this was in the early stages of my business. Now I know like immediately if we don't jive personality wise, I can't spend an hour on a call with you every week. I'm just not going to do it. And I don't want you to do it. But that was a perfect example that like I really truly had to decide who is the right fit for me, as well as what do they need to have in place to be the right fit. You know what I mean? Like who's the right fit for me and am I the right fit for them? And so I would let them know when I did do sales calls. I don't really do them anymore, but when I did do sales calls, I would immediately start it like, hey, look, I'm someone who's going to partner with you. And partnering to me means I get to know you on a personal level. I've had clients come North Carolina and stay with me for like 4 days. Like it's not just a business relationship with me. You become a partner with me. You become a true friend. So anyways, that was something that like I had to really make sure that I showcased in my marketing and that showcased who I was, because I didn't want to ever attract that again. And I don't see a lot of people doing that, nor do I see a lot of people actually stating in their content, in their marketing, the criteria someone needs to have in place to be a perfect fit. That's another really big nuance that I don't see. And I'm very strict about that with my clients of like, how do you know they are a perfect fit? What is, I call it my 5A method. Like what are, I have it literally written on my computer right here, so I can read it quickly. Their assets, their actions, their ability, their awareness, and their attractions. Like what are all of those things that they need to have in place to be a perfect fit for you? And that all is also energy wise. Right. Because I don't work with clients who get on the call and have the personality of a rice cake. I can't do it. It's just not okay for me. I work with people who may not be exactly like me, but they're similar,
But every time you and I get on a call, I think we spend 2 hours catching up, and then like
but that is me. Like I have to do that. That is my love language, right? Like,
I get it. And I love that too. I want to know how things are going with everything. How are you doing in this world? And listen, you spoke to my mastermind about the soul sciences before, and there were two there were a bunch of people on the call, but there were two specific people that I'm thinking about. One that as soon as I introduced her to the soul sciences, she went hook, line, and sinker and like cannonballed into the pool. And one guy, I think I've spent 6 months trying to convince him that it's true. Right. So it's like those are two clients, and they're both wonderful human beings. But one is like the ideal person to be teaching the soul sciences, and the other person is someone, you know, that maybe isn't the ideal person. Now that I'm teaching, they're starting to open up their eyes to it. But you know, who are you attracting in the world? So this we get to speak to the person, the ideal person, not just any person.
Yeah, I call it who would you want to be stuck next to on a plane for 4 hours?
Love it.
Like if you could, when I say think of your ideal client, who is the client that you could sit next to on a plane for 4 hours and they would look at you and be like, oh my gosh, you're speaking my language. Everything you're saying is spot on. Like they just praised you to the high heavens and they understood it and they got it. There was literally no convincing. There was no pushback. There was no nothing. That is your ideal client.
An old coach that I used to have said, if I'm not going to let you stay at my house when you're in town, I don't want you in my coaching program.
Mine is if I would not invite you to my birthday party. That's like my thing. Mine is like, anyone can stay at my house. I don't care. But like my birthday party is something else. If I don't feel like I could invite you to my birthday and confidently know that you would come. Then no, it's a no for me.
And as we were talking, and we're going to switch here soon, but as we were talking about my profile, what you showed me and what you told me is if someone's not willing to get really, really vulnerable, really deep, really quickly, then they have really no place in my ecosystem. So talk about maybe where that shows up, and then let's go into a little bit about what you see in my profile, and maybe my listeners will connect to this and see this through the content and hear this and how it's true.
Yeah. I'm going to pull your astrology chart back up. For anyone listening who's not familiar with astrology, I'm only going to go into like a few things. So I'll explain what each is. And I've already, it was funny because my business partner and I, Rachel, ended up reading Mike's chart on my podcast at random. Like I had a bunch of people volunteer and I pulled his, and we kind of just like, you were number one. We like read it blindly. We didn't read any of the answers. And when we read the answers, we were like, oh my gosh, the accuracy, which was really crazy. But basically Mike is a Taurus rising, and he is a Leo sun in the 4th house, and he is a Capricorn moon in the 8th house. And so basically, Mike, we've talked about this, and in your soul sciences call, mastermind call that I did, I talked about the moon, which I love the moon. I love to talk about the moon. I feel like when the moon is happy in your chart, everything else falls in place because we are emotional beings. And, just with the whole like law of attraction, all of that stuff, right? It is based off your vibration, and you have the emotional scale, right? And authenticity, joy, love, all of that is at the top. So when you are feeling those things, you are able to attract, high vibrational things to you. So I really love the moon. I think it is I call it the manifestation. When you really tap into that moon and the house that it's in and the traits, the theme that it's in, all of that, that's when things really start to fall in place. And within your business, you get to really feel emotionally fulfilled in your business. I know a lot of people have built businesses because they thought they should have, and they built it a way that they didn't really enjoy, didn't really bring them fulfillment. They just kind of maybe chased money. And then it all kind of came crumbling down, right? And a few people have rebuilt it back up, like I'm not hustling anymore. I'm going to do it in a aligned way. But it was because I guarantee they were going against their moon sign. So your moon is Capricorn in the 8th house. And so I was telling Mike, that means like let's take Capricorn first. Capricorn is an earth sign. Capricorn is it's all about foundation things. It's all about the details. It is all about structure. It loves stability. You want to feel emotionally stable. It is very much a stubborn could be a little stubborn
Yeah.
sign too. All right.
Sure.
But
Determined and stubborn.
I have a
Sure.
Capricorn stellium, so I'm very stubborn. I get it. But it's also in the 8th house of other people's resources. And it's also in the house of death and rebirth. And to me, especially in a business sense, you are emotionally fulfilled when you are helping people transform, when you're helping people die to something that's not serving them and being reborn. You
Yes.
also feel very emotionally fulfilled when there is stability, when people feel stable in who they are, and they are stable in what they have and what they possess. And when I mean what they possess, this is their skills, this is their knowledge, this is, I mean, everything. It could even be tangible resources, right? Because it's in the house of other people's resources. Now, I say this too, that since it's in the 8th house, you tend to help people a lot more with their emotions, and looking at their emotions in a very strategical way. That sounds really weird to say, right? But you're helping them look at their emotions in a very strategical way to tap into it, to use it for a greater good. And you feel very emotionally fulfilled when you're doing that, right? Now, that coupled with your Leo sun is in your 4th house. 4th house is home, right? Your 4th house rules your home. It rules generational patterns. This could also mean that you are helping people break generational patterns in some sort. I could totally see that, especially around money. We've talked about that before because you are a Taurus rising, which is ruled by Venus, and Venus is the planet of money and love and beauty. So it could be like helping people shift their generational patterns with money. It could be helping them really shine a light because your sun is a Leo. You're here to shine in that area. It could be looking at their foundations and seeing like where the cracks in their foundations are. It could even be looking at the subconscious things that have kind of held them back in a way, and really helping them kind of bring that to light. Now I'll say this, with you having that Leo sun, that it's in its home, like, because Leo rules the sun, so it's very natural for you to shine. But we already talked about this a little bit.
Don't but.
Yeah, what feels a little conflicting for you, again, we talked about that you have an Aries MC, which is the opposite energy of that. So there's a little bit of this kind of push-pull energy of, I really want to be seen as super innovative and weird, and I want to rebel against the bullshit I don't believe in, and I want everyone to see this, blah, blah, blah. But then it's this kind of like shadow side of like, but are people really going to recognize me? Are people going to like criticize me? Am I going to get canceled if I really show up really powerfully this way? Like it's a lot of this like push-pull energy. And I'm just cracking up because I've told Mike before, a lot of my clients are Leos, and I sometimes have to be like, look, you are here to shine. Like, you really are here to shine, but you have to stop speaking to the masses. Like, you can still, how do I say it? It's like, you can really say what you want to say without being an asshole and without being canceled.
Sure.
I say that to my Leos a lot. So there is a lot of that push-pull energy, because it is this, like, I really love to be seen and validated. And a lot of my Leos have built a career kind of talking about one thing and getting really well known for that one thing and being very inspirational in that one thing and motivational in that one thing. And then they kind of hit this point where they're like, I really want more depth. I really want to go deeper. And then it's almost, again, a little bit of that pattern of like, I'm a little afraid to do it because I'm already so secure.
And I'm right here
in this area. I'm right already
there.
here.
I'm right there. Right. So this will be 160 some episodes of this podcast. And I regularly talk about my childhood, growing up in religion, let's say, and it wasn't a very happy religious experience. And the book that I'm writing right now, at times I used to show up against religion, but instead the energy is flipped to showing up for spirituality and not against religion. And that was the fear of that switch, and that depth is getting into the pro spirituality instead of the anti-religion.
funny because your ninth house that rules spirituality is where your north node is. So you don't really start to grow into your north node till a little bit later in life. Usually mid 30s, 40s is when I really start to see people shifting into that north node. So your north node is in the ninth house of religion and education, and it's in Capricorn. And Capricorn, again, rules the foundational things, the details. Like we're not just going to believe something because someone said so.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're the why children.
Yeah.
We need to know why. Like we need to know all the details. We need to get down to the foundations. Like, and we could go into religion, all that stuff, but I've gone on my own journey. I mentioned to you on the mastermind call, I grew up atheist. We didn't really talk about anything, believe anything. Then I became a Christian in college. Then I had a lot of religious Christian trauma, especially being a female during purity culture when I became a Christian. And it was just really, really hard. And then I started really digging into the history of the Bible and the history of different things. And I was like, there's a lot of things here that I don't necessarily agree with, but I do 100% believe that there is a God. And I do 100% believe that there is a higher power. And I do believe that it's good and it's pure and it's amazing. I've had so many experiences with it, but I don't believe in the restrictiveness of what I was personally being taught with Christianity. And then when I started really getting into the spiritual world and really learning and feeling and being in my body and hypnotherapy really threw me for a loop. Getting into all of those things, I really was like, wow, this is so beautiful and so pure and so amazing. And I do feel one, and I started looking at Jesus more as an example of consciousness than my quote unquote savior. I really just don't jive with the I was born sinful and I need to be saved. The way that it was taught to me just didn't feel good and aligned, but I do believe that he was an example of what the energy of higher consciousness is, and that he's an amazing example. But I don't love the thing of you have to be saved type thing. We could go on and on about it. But
sister, we're speaking the same language, and we'll put this on a different podcast episode. I did have a guy reach out to me on Messenger the other day. He said, "Hey, I loved your podcast until I got to the part that said that you are part of God, you are one with God, and God
yes,
is
we are."
And then he said, "So I'm out," and he disconnected. So this has been the thing that you're expressing, to bring it back to what you said, is this is really what my soul wants to express at a deep, deep level. And now as I'm stepping into it, I guess I'm meeting a little bit of the resistance that I expected, but it's the expectation that's creating the resistance, right?
Yes.
So now that when I let that expectation go, the resistance will go away. But this is part of our growth and evolution and moving into the ninth house. And my break from religion into spirituality happened right around mid 40s. So just to give you some context.
You probably I think you have your nodal return every 15 years. So you have your first at 15, then you have it around 30s, and you have it around 45. A little, sometimes it just depends if it was in what was going on at that time, but usually it's around 15 years. So that's why too. No, actually I scratch that. I think it's between 13 to 16, something like that, because it is, you're a teenager, then you go into adulthood, right? You kind of have all of those periods. So you were probably going through a nodal return.
Got it.
At that point.
Well,
which makes sense. Yes.
43 years old is when everything fell apart for me. And I started hitting resistance right around 37, 38-ish. And it kept getting heavier and heavier and heavier. And I wouldn't make any significant changes. So the universe, God, life, whatever you want to call it, made it for me. And that's when everything fell apart and I got a chance to rebuild it. And I do believe that was my midlife, right? That was my Uranus return. So I hit that midlife.
Okay.
Some people call it a midlife crisis. I don't feel it's a crisis. For me, it was a midlife recalibration. I was so far off my path, and that was Uranus put me back on my path.
Yes. I love that. And I think you go through so many changes. And then of course, when you're looking at your astrology, the aspects, all those different things in there. Funny enough, I used to be someone who, when I first got introduced to human design astrology, I was like, that's bullshit. There's no way that's real, whatever. And it was funny. Years later, probably like a year ago, I was watching a TikTok and the girl was like, if you have heavy Capricorn placements, you're probably someone who only got interested in astrology because you wanted to prove the person wrong. But then you got into it and you're like, wait, this shit makes sense. And I started laughing. I was like, oh, guilty. But yeah, it's just so, it was just so funny because it's like, we were like, no, we need the structure. We need the facts, the proof. Right. But it was just really funny. I still think about that sometimes. I'm like, that's hilarious. Cause I was like, I wanted to learn about human design. Actually, the first time that I ever heard of human design was on a podcast. A girl was like, hey, can I read your human design before we get on? I'm like, what the hell is that? She was like, oh, I need your birthday. And I was like, oh God, she's one of these like weirdos who thinks that the stars, represent everything. And so I was like, whatever, I'm going to shits and giggles. I'm going to give it to her. And I gave it to her, and we get on the podcast and she started explaining things. And I'm like, how's this chick know this? Like, how does she know this? And we get off and I was like, now I need to go study human design because I'm going to come back and prove to this girl that she just like went and looked at my profile and figured out all this stuff, whatever. But that was not the case. I ended up going down and I'm like, damn, this is actually really accurate. Then the same thing happened with astrology. I was just like, well, I was taught in religion that astrology was the devil's work and, all that. So
yep. And that's exactly what I was getting ready to say. When somebody slid a human design chart, and it was right at the beginning of my reset, right around 43 years old, my mentor slid a human design chart in front of me. And I was like, what the fuck is this?
Yes.
And then my second thought as he started explaining it is, am I even allowed to read this? Because I was still like struggling to put on the cloak of Christianity. Right. And it didn't fit, but I kept trying to force fit it on my life. And like I was doing with every other belief that I didn't really like that didn't fit. But as soon as I saw an element of truth, it's like, I just dove in the pool. And that's when that's when I really started seeing who I really am, like who I always knew I was. I don't think this stuff tells you anything you don't know about yourself. I think it just helps you understand and accept and embrace who you really are and really step into a powerful element of authenticity.
Yeah, it's the energy. I like to explain astrology, human design. It is your specific energy on Earth. It is how you can use, and it doesn't mean that if you don't use it, it's squandered or like whatever. It's almost like, here's a roadmap. You can follow it if you want to, but you don't have to, right? Like it's not like we do have free will, right? But it's just a lot easier when you know it. And it's almost like this permission slip of like, I knew this about me. I have read so many astrology charts and human design charts, and I've never had someone say like, wow, I didn't know that. It's more of like, oh, I knew that, but like, I just kind of needed permission to like really step into that or really confirmation. Yeah. I'll tell you too, the first astrology reading that I had, because again, I went into human design thinking like, I'm going to prove it wrong. And then I was like, okay, this is freaking amazing. And then again, I was kind of skeptical with astrology. I'm like, well, maybe human design isn't part of the like not talked about Christian thing, And I said, so maybe like only astrology is. And then I had this random guy. I was watching him on TikTok, on a TikTok live, and he was going into stuff. And I said, he's like, I'm offering readings for $50. And I said, I'm going to pay for a reading for $50. I'm just going to do it. See what he says. Homeboy read me to filth. And when I knew when I knew astrology was real, because this is what he said. He said, did you by any chance, like, did your father pass away or did he leave like your present home or whatever around the age of 13? And I looked at this man and I was like, how the flip did you know this? Wow. And my dad passed away when I was 13. Wow. And I was actually the one that found him. And it was like a huge traumatic thing for me that I had to work really hard to. And like my dad and I's relationship was really, really close. I'm going to get teary-eyed. I was very close with my dad. And then like me and my mom had they were separated. Mom had a terrible relationship afterwards because I kind of blamed her for not allowing me to see him before he died. They were separated, so we live in different houses. And I wanted to visit him on a Friday, and she told me no. And so we went on Sunday, and then on Sunday he had died, and he had passed away Saturday. And that's what so we had like a whole thing going through. But when he was going through my chart, he's like, yeah, I see this here. And he was like, and it was squaring your moon. And he was like, which meant you had a lot of a lot of tension with your mother, and the relationship with your mother really crumbled. And I was like, what the flip? Like, how did you know this? And then he was like, he goes, I'm assuming your dad had like a Cancer energy too, and Capricorn energy. And I'm like, oh my God. Like, anyways, so then of course I didn't know the time my dad was born, but you can still see what planets and stuff fall in. You just don't have the houses. But yeah, everything he said was like spot on. And he was like, I bet your mom had this. And I like pulled up my mom's chart and I'm like, what the flip?
Right.
He was doing derivative astrology. But anyways, it was just really, really cool. And even my daughter, my oldest daughter, Emery, obviously I had her at the time I had this reading. And he was even saying, he was like, yeah, and I'm assuming that your daughter also has these signs. And I was like, this is absolutely ludicrous. Like, how do you know this? Then he was looking at one of my aspects. He's like, yeah, a lot of people with this tend to go into hypnotherapy. And I was like, I literally just finished my certification for hypnotherapy.
Wow.
I was like, are you psychic too? He's like, no, I just see it in the stars. I'm like, this is insanity.
Are you still working with this guy?
I'm not. I did that one reading with him, and then Rachel and I did a reading together with him. I still see him pop up on Facebook every now and then. He's dramatically increased his prices. I actually gave him some tough love afterwards. I said, if you don't get your ass charging more for this, I'm going to literally kill you. Like, you need to do more. But he was like, pulled up his chart, and I'm like, and he was telling me, he's like, yeah, I'm really conscious here, and self-conscious here. And he had a lot of like hard aspects in his chart. And I'm like, okay, I see that, but like, can I please help you with messaging? Can I please like help you do this? He was so, oh my God, he was so great. He would always call us, okay, my oneness. That's what he would say, my oneness, or my wholeness. I don't know. He was so sweet, super sweet guy. But yeah, he read me to filth. And I was like, okay, astrology, I'm sold. I'm 100% sold. And then I went and bought, you can't really see, but I have like 50 million books. Went down the rabbit hole of learning. Yeah, I was like, okay, I got into it. And then started combining the human design with the astrology together. And I'm like, this is game changer. And then really started using it with my clients and like how they can tap into different things within their business. Because it's all one, like what you're doing, your business affects your home life, affects your personal life, like everything. But yeah, just really tapping into it. And, when I was looking at my chart too, specifically, it was just funny because I asked him, I said, what do you think I do for work? And he didn't know. And he said, I could either see you do something with like marketing, specifically speaking. He was like, I see publishing. And I was like, oh, I've always wanted to write a book. He goes, I can see also hypnotherapy. And I was like, yeah, I'm certified in hypnotherapy. But he basically was like, yeah, this is exactly what I see you doing. And then he even said with astrology, he was like, I could also see you pulling in astrology, maybe even human design into it. And I was like, dude, things. So yeah, it was really cool. And now I'm a believer, 100% believer.
I might know who you're talking about. So offline, I'm going to ask you if it's who I think it is. But I'm going to tell two stories.
His name.
I'm going to tell two stories, and I'm going to tell one about my journey and my validation that some of this stuff is real, with it, that it is real, not some of it, because it's all based on natal astrology. It's all based on the same stuff. But I'm going to talk about you. And when you read that blind chart, I'm going to talk about one specific piece in there that I found really, really amusing. And there, you can't make this shit up. So, but going back to my story, the only thing I've ever loved in my life when I was in corporate, the only thing I ever loved was developing people and developing teams. And I ran $65 million, $350 million manufacturing plants. The only thing I ever loved is developing people and developing teams. And when I found human design and subset of human design, or an offshoot of human design, is called Gene Keys. And my life's purpose is Gene Key 14, Gate 14. And it's possession in great measure, but it's about contributing. It's about giving back to others. It's about teaching. It's about service. It's about, you'll make a lot of money, but you're going to make a lot of money by serving other people and becoming competent in your craft so that you can greatly impact the lives of others. But people will see you and they will seek you out. And when I've read this, I didn't fully understand it. But when I decided in my private coaching practice, when I got out of corporate and I started my coaching practice, I got this clear intention, 10 clients, 10K. And before, at the snap of a finger, I had 16 clients and like a lot more than 10K. So it just happened really, really quickly. And my Gene Keys, my human design called that out. Now, here's the amusing part that I want to share about you. When we were doing our reading, you and Rachel actually did a recording. So I wasn't even involved. You just have my chart. You got my permission to read it on your podcast.
Yes.
And there was one part in there you said, you're here. And I can't remember the exact, but I'm gonna kind of summarize it. You said you're here to work with people, to generate some wealth, but it's not just regular wealth; it's inner wealth.
Yes.
And that's
which is a word I never use ever. Like I've never used that word. And I said, it's almost like inner wealth. That's kind of weird to say. I remember I said, it's almost like inner wealth. That's kind of weird to say, but it's like, yeah, it's like inner wealth. Yeah.
And that's the name of my business.
That's the name of his business. So funny. I cry. And when we read the answers because I had asked him, about his business, and we read the answers after. And it was, he was like, I run my business is inner wealth. And me and Rachel howled. We were like, oh my God, what in the world? And it's crazy. I've read people's charts and I've just had random things come to me and they're like, what the flip? Like, this is so accurate, blah, blah, blah. But that was one of my proud moments. I felt so good. I'm like, man, my intuition is on point. I'm like,
it should be. You are intuitive. You're getting the perfect download exactly when you need it. So listen, we're going to wrap it up here in a little bit. But before I toss it to you, and I want everybody to understand where they can find you and how to connect with you. When you look at the chart, okay, now, so I've got people that have listened to every podcast episode, so they know my voice, they know the message. When you look at my chart, who am I speaking to? Now, who am I speaking to? What's
this question?
Yeah, there you go. What is that ideal client? What is that person that's going to listen to this podcast? Who are they and what are they about?
So you want me to read them to filth? Okay, no, I'm just joking. So this is a fun thing to do with your own chart. If anyone pulls their own astrology chart, and this is what I do with my clients. Your one-to-one client is usually found in your 7th house. The energy that starts your 7th house is the energy that you are just the most fulfilled and most aligned to work with, because it is across from your 1st house. And when you are speaking to that energy, people will become attracted to you. I like to say you bring the knowledge that you have in your 1st house and you speak the language of your 7th house. And so for you, well, let's backtrack. We have 7th house if you are doing anything one-to-one or even smaller groups. Now, if you are speaking to a group, let's say you're selling a group offer of some sort. So this would probably be a little bit more for the podcast, because your podcast is a wide group of individuals. You're not just speaking to one specific person in your podcast. You're speaking to an array of people, of listeners. You will tend to speak more towards the energy of your 11th house, because 11th house rules groups. It also rules social networks. So with you, Mike, you have Scorpio in your 7th house. And you have, Pisces in your 11th house. So these are very similar signs because they're both water signs. So what I know about your ideal listener, the people who are just getting the most out of your podcast, they are people who really want depth. They are the people who do not want to stay surface level. They love to even talk about taboo things, like Scorpio rules taboo. Sometimes Scorpio is a little dark, a little like provocative is the best word. We've used that word earlier. It's a perfect word. Yeah. A lot of times people immediately think of Scorpio as like sexual. I don't think that way. I think of it as very intimate. I also think of it as, again, very taboo and very provocative. It is the energy. These people really truly want something different. They don't love the rah, like you are enough. It is like, it's a very much deeper understanding of that. Very much deeper understanding. Same for your Pisces. Your Pisces people, also water sign, love the flow. They love the depth. They also really, really value the spirituality with a dash of how to. That sounds really odd, but it's almost like, yeah, this sounds really great. It feels really amazing, but how can I implement it? Yeah. If that makes sense. But they don't want straight strategy. Straight strategy, they'll roll their eyes for days. They're like, absolutely not. Like, I'm not here to your 5 steps to 10K. Like, no, they'll roll their eyes. but they do need a little bit of structure, right? Like if you think of water, a water does need a container, right? It does need a container to be able to hold the water. And if you even think of an ocean, the ocean moves, right? There's waves. It is movement there. So you do kind of have to have an area of restriction or like strategy there to be able to tap into. So yeah, your people don't like surface level. Knowing you too, just you in general, you are an Aquarius MC. Your 10th house shows how people view you from an outside perspective. You are their fellow weirdo. Like they kind of see you and they're like, dude, he will be a little weird and unorthodox and unconventional, and I'm flipping here for it.
I love that.
Yeah, they really do see you as like the person who will just say what you need to say, especially if it's your platform. And again, going really deep. They need to go deep.
I launched a coaching group one time called the Misfit Soul. So I love that.
Yes. That's Aquarius energy. Aquarius energy to the peak. And again, Scorpios are very misunderstood energy. They're very intense. Like, they're told to be. I absolutely adore Scorpios. Like, love my very first crush ever in my life was a Scorpio, and I thought he was so mysterious and like, oh my god, I just absolutely had the most intellectual conversations with him. I like absolutely adored him. And then my business partner Rachel has 5 planets in Scorpio. Wow. So we work so well together. I love the Scorpio, but they're very intense and they're very piercing. They are the people who will ask you the very, very hard questions, and they also want to be asked the very hard questions, because they don't love surface level. They want to be deep.
Super cool.
So that is your person.
Not only did you describe who I love speaking to and the content that I'm speaking to, you just lit me up about the people that are listening, because they are my people. They are, there's no surface level. And I'm thinking back to some episodes, and I'll provide 5 things to experience more happiness and more freedom, but no 5 steps to happiness in 30 days, right? There's no timeline. It's just like,
no time. No
here's
time.
7 things to consider to move into a higher dimension of this aspect.
I'll say this too. Both Scorpio and Pisces are ruled by generational planets. So they don't like to be constricted to time. That sounds really weird to say, but like Scorpio is ruled by Pluto. Pluto moves every 15 years. Like it takes a long time to move. And then Pisces is originally ruled by Neptune. Also takes a long time to move. They don't love time restriction. They feel very restricted with time. So I would never encourage you to be like, change your life in 10 days. Like, they'd be like, no. They're like, no. They'll be like, this is some babble BS I'm not going to listen to. Right. And even for you, we talked about this on one of our calls. Like I was even mentioning to Mike, I said, your client probably also loves the freedom of time where they can have that time to really dive in and learn, but then have the freedom to go and implement and be in flow and be, being able to like experience it on their own, without like having more information crammed on at one time. And that could be very, I would even say like, if you had some offer being like, hey, you get 10 calls, but you get to schedule them whenever you want over this amount of time. And that feels, and I think you have one-on-one clients where you said, that's kind of what they do. They just like book calls and we have a chat and so that's that's very much your people. They don't like to be restricted.
I love that.
So there we go.
And most of my podcast episodes are 20 minutes, 25 minutes, because they like the short burst. I like the short burst. They like the short burst. These interviews are usually a little longer. And Ashley, I wish we had a couple hours to go, but we're going to wrap it up. I think at some point, maybe me and you launch our own podcast, and I think we'd have a good time.
Listen, my open throat in human design could talk all day long. Really, truly, I could. And I love it. So
Ashley has a podcast called the No Farting Around podcast, where now they fart around a little bit. But I think we call it the Soul Sciences, no farting on Soul Sciences call or podcast.
Something.
We'll figure out something. But listen, where can they get a hold of you, right?
I'm actually doing a complete 180 rebrand right now since we have my business partner. Right now, my brand is just ashleymayfernandez.com. That website will still be there, but it's going to be redirected to NFA marketing. So literally now I'm going to be no partner around marketing. So I'm really excited about that.
That's awesome.
That's in the works. I'm in the back end doing that right now. But the best place to find me, Facebook is just Ashley Mae Fernandez. And then also I just resurrected my LinkedIn profile. So come find me on LinkedIn. And that's usually the only two places that I jive at. I do have a TikTok. I don't post much on there, but I do consume. So you can also come join me on TikTok if you want to. Same as Ashley Mae Fernandez on all platforms. So.
Well, it's fun watching you on social media. I love, Ash posts a lot of good marketing content to help you understand how to speak to the people that you want to speak to. It's really helped me, and I know it's really helped a lot of people. It's fun watching you on social media, but it's even more fun to get to know you and to do some life with you and jam with you. All right, and I'd love to have you back to jam.
I'd love to come back. Absolutely.
Awesome. For now, we'll wrap it up and see you next week.